Now, the ANC government is using apartheid-style laws to control private citizens' behavior. In apartheid times, liquor laws were once a means of social control, and the proposed liquor laws are moving South Africa backwards. Now, this is the view expressed by South Africa's Free Market Foundation in reaction to proposed laws banning alcohol sales on Sunday. The foundation's executive director, Leon Lu, now joins me in studio to discuss just what the government is trying to do here and how opposed. Now, look, Leon, I know that you are fundamentally opposed to this because obviously on ideological grounds alone, the government is sort of moving into an area where it is beginning to curtail people's ability to make a choice. But is it as deep as that? Surely isn't the government right to try and do good?
You know, I wonder if the problem is that people are simply too young, because I started my legal career in the 1960s and 70s specializing in land and in liquor licensing. And in those days, liquor was banned for black South Africans. There was total prohibition, and that is what led to the emergence of what we now call shebeens.
The shebeens, I remember doing a story around it. It was a fascinating story.
And for white South Africans who were allowed to have liquor, it was very restricted. No liquor on Sundays, no liquor sales after noon on a Saturday, no liquor sales in the evenings, and so on and so forth. Very heavily restricted liquor. Now, we are getting exactly that back again now. In fact, I have to be honest, when I read the draft regulation, and let me make it clear, it's not the ANC or even the government.
Who is it?
The same sorts of laws are being proposed under the Democratic Alliance in the Western Cape, and local governments they control, like George.
So it's not ideological?
No, it's not party political, and it's not ideological, and within the ANC there are people who are more liberal and more concerned about human rights and personal choice and freedom. And then there are the Puritans and the authoritarians. And you know, as I once saw a bumper sticker in California, where you see all the good bumper stickers, and it said, vices are not crimes. And it's very important to distinguish between bad lifestyle behavior and choices, eating too much, being obese. Now, the point is, it's the thin edge of the wedge. We started with tobacco. I told people next would be liquor. And we already now, the Department of Health is busy planning laws about salt and about junk food and about lifestyle generally, obesity. The biggest killer of all is actually HIV/AIDS, and so we then need to have, you know, prohibit unprotected sex and that sort of thing. But the liquor laws, they are now at the moment at local government level, many city councils are passing their own laws, and I don't know what's happening. It's a kind of barrage, a kind of tsunami that's hitting us from all sides. It's as if the whole country's been seized by some strange virus.
You are characterizing this as a curtailment of freedom of choice. Though one would argue, though, the government has a responsibility, surely, to ensure that it protects lives and people, I don't know, people don't harm themselves.
Yes, absolutely. Now, the way you do that is, for example, in the 1970s, which the greatest success in curtailing tobacco use was in the United Kingdom, where there were no regulations at all. All it was public education and persuasion, programs in schools.
So you're suggesting education is the way?
That brought down, let's look at the facts, that brought down smoking by 50%. Then they started with draconian regulation against tobacco, and consumption started going up, and it is now simply flat. No more gains are being made. In liquor, it was the same thing. Under apartheid legislation, liquor consumption and abuse and alcoholism was higher. When you started deregulating and you started trusting people to take good advice, then we had less abuse and less alcoholism. And so what you want to do is, you can't say that because I want you to be healthy, you can't be free. You see, what I can say is, I want you to be healthy, and in order to get you to be healthy, I want you to be
healthy and free.
Yes, and free. And I'm going to give you advice, and I'm going to give you guidance.
If you don't listen?
And if you don't listen, then you must live with the consequences. We must remember, we are allowed to commit suicide, also on Sundays. And so we can stand with a gun against our head, that's lawful. But you can't stand with a glass of wine in your hand. You see, so this doesn't make any sense. If we trust people...
So what are you doing about it?
If we trust people enough to vote, to elect you, then you should at least have the decency to
allow
trust
them to make judgments for
themselves. Their lifestyle
what are you
choices.
doing about it?
Well, what we need to do is to persuade the government this is not the way to promote good behavior and good values. On the contrary, if you are compelled to do something, then it's not a sign of you being virtuous. The way to get you not to be obese, to exercise, to eat well, to have a good lifestyle is guidance. Now, I myself am teetotal and I'm a lifelong non-smoker. So I've no personal
so you're not
interest
standing in here trying to defend the guys who have their
I think
Sunday.
you should live a good lifestyle, and I will defend your right to make the choice.
If the government doesn't listen, what do you do?
Well, then there are a number of things. One is that all we have to do is persuade, influence the public opinion. The government has to listen to the public in a democracy. If it oversteps the legal barriers, which some of these laws appear to do, then maybe someone, we don't have the resources or the inclination, will challenge them in court. And some of these laws are so badly drafted, there's absolutely no doubt there will be a deluge of litigation. And what's more, this new liquor law of the Gauteng government, for example, similar to the one in the Western Cape, which I think they might be changing their mind about, is going to lead to an explosion of corruption and abuse. Absolutely so, because
for example, to be able to get your Sunday drink.
Liquor license renewals. Every year, every liquor outlet will have to apply afresh for a license. You don't have to be clever to predict corruption. In fact, it will be very surprising if this is not riddled with corruption.
Give the government some free advice here. Now, I know you have suggested education is one way. What else can they do?
Yes, what I think we need to do is, for example, if you take the protection, we all need to be protected vigorously against drunk drivers, against family abuse by alcoholism, against workplace dysfunctionality due to alcoholism. So what we need is strict application of the safe driving law, not the drunk driving law. You must drive safe. And strict application of laws against assault and rape. So the government needs to clamp down on basic protection of individuals from other people's smoke, from other people's liquor abuse, and then allow freedom within those limits. So in other words, the purpose of the law should be to protect you from me, not to protect you from yourself.
Now, it's interesting we're talking about this because, of course, as we know, one of the biggest proponents of the free market system was Margaret Thatcher. And Margaret Thatcher, as we know, was a hugely divisive figure in the UK, such that we have been reading stories every day about people going on parties. I've got a quote here that I can't even say on air because it's that bad. But one of the interesting things that I saw today was some guys who was quoted by Reuters, and he is saying, Margaret Thatcher liked to privatize things. Please, privatize a funeral. Put it out to competitive tender and accept the cheapest bid. It's what you'd have wanted.
Yes, I think that's a quite entertaining and amusing thing. I would agree. I do not think that there should be a state funeral. The funeral should be entirely a private affair.
Do you think she would have wanted a state funeral?
I don't think so. I hope not. I don't speak for Thatcher. I think she was...
I think your views and broadly and yours sort of...
On privatization, but let me make the point that very few people realize, she never got elected on the privatization platform. It wasn't part of a platform. The word did not even exist when she came into office. Words like privatize, corporatize, deregulate, commercialize, these are words that subsequently came into existence. But what she did do, she changed the world in a very fundamental and good way, and she did some bad things with which I disagree, with which I agree. I agree with people who say that. But one of them is the world has never been the same again. It is now commonplace around the world for there to be private energy providers. It's in fact the norm. South Africa with Eskom is an exception.
And it's more efficient, it's cheaper.
It's everywhere is doing it, all over the world. And it's now common in the world for people to have, for example, private telephone companies. They did not exist. There were none before Thatcher. So the fact that people here and the people who are having these parties are organizing them on private cell phones, they should thank Thatcher for that.